Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We were just getting a few technical things underway, but I think we've got everything we need. Rochelle, can you pull up the presentation?
Sure. You should see the presentation. You don't see the presentation?
I don't. Do others?
All right, let me try it again. Hold on one moment.
I see your name large.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, now I see the presentation.
Let me wait for a moment.
Maybe
Okay.
others saw it before, but I didn't see it before, but now I can see it. So, all right, so we're ready to go. So again, everybody, thank you for joining. I'm getting a message, Rochelle, too, and Brian, that the chat is disabled. Can we open the chat up? I wanted to let everybody know that we were going to put in the chat just before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. We're going to put in the chat a link to a form to enter questions. You can put questions in the chat and we'll have a question and answer period at the end. But just in case anything happens and we're not able to get to all of the questions, we wanted to be able to collect those still. So you can use that link to submit questions and we'll post those on our website. Also, for everybody to know, this is being recorded and we're going to make it available on our website as well for people who are not able to make it to the webinar today. There'll be another opportunity. You'll either be able to see it through the link on our website, or there will be a second webinar that we're having next week on the 24th at 6 p.m. So if you know anybody who wasn't able to make it today and is still interested in participating in the webinar, they can join next week. So with that said, I wanted to get into it. Today, we're going to be talking to you about the City of Baltimore's new fixed pricing program, as well as our Charm City Roots program. My name is Kate Edwards. I am Deputy Commissioner for the Development Division at DHCD, and I have with me today Tamara Woods, our Assistant Commissioner for Land Management and Transactions, who will be helping later on with the presentation, and then Rochelle Celestin, who is in the chat and able to answer some questions in the chat. If you have questions that you can submit there, we'll try and type some of the answers, and then at the end, we'll answer ones verbally that we're not able to get to in the chat. So can we go to the next slide? All right, so our agenda for today, we're going to go over we're just going to give you the outline of the program launch. And then we're going to go over the purpose of the program, the background information, some of our goals, summary, and then we'll give you some of the details about pricing information and criteria and the processes and procedures for purchasing city-owned property through these programs. So we'll go to the next slide. So we launched, this program was initially approved by the Board of Estimates back on March 20th. We launched the first phase of the program on April 1st. And that phase is a priority period for people who are Baltimore City residents and want to purchase properties as their primary residence. So they're planning to live in this property as a homeowner. They get number one priority between April 1st and June 30th. And people who want to purchase for their primary residence are eligible to purchase properties for $1. However, you do have to have proof of funding available for the rehabilitation of the properties up to of no less than $90,000. And so, like I said, that's April 1st through June 30th. Phase 2 is kind of a sub program that we've launched which is Charm City Roots. This portal opened on April 15th, and this focuses on the connection that people have to properties that have either a familial connection or maybe in their neighborhood, and they have some kind of legacy tie to this property. And so people are able to make us aware of the property, give us information, and we will do some research into the property, see if it's a property that we are able to acquire. And if so, the city will look to acquire the property and work with the person who's interested to get them in a position where they would actually be able to purchase the property. So this part right here, which started on April 15th, that's going to be an ongoing portal that we'll have open for people to express interest in properties. However, these, like I said, this would be properties that need to be acquired. So these are properties that are not yet city owned. It's only for vacant properties. And it will take some time to acquire property. So even if a property is found to be eligible and feasible for acquisition, that could be a multi-year process. So these are not properties that are going to be available immediately. And then phase 3 is really the kind of second phase of the fixed pricing program, and that begins on July 1st, and that's when all applicants are able to apply for properties. So we open it up beyond just Baltimore residents who want to buy for their own primary residence. At this point on July 1st, it will be open for anyone who is interested in purchasing properties. And we're going to go into the details of the different kind of price levels and everything for the properties. So we can go to the next slide. All right. So the purpose of the fixed pricing program is to really help support our community-led development efforts in Baltimore, to help us create more thriving neighborhoods and to promote the rehabilitation of vacant properties throughout some of our more stressed neighborhoods. So we want to make a streamlined process that gives more equitable access to city-owned properties. And so we can go on to the next slide. So just to give you a little background, the development division in DHCD, we acquire and manage vacant or abandoned properties for the city, for the ones that are held within our inventory within DHCD. We strive to have these properties returned to productive use. The fixed pricing policy will allow the city, certain city-owned properties to be priced at a very kind of minimal levels. And those only for specific housing and certain typologies, which we'll get into a little bit further along. And our goal, we're really trying to increase transparency and streamline the disposition process. And we want to eliminate the need for protracted price negotiations for the majority of our inventory. Next. So our goals are to support whole block and whole community redevelopment outcomes. We want to convert qualified vacant buildings and lots to productive use, stabilize and strengthen owners' investment in their communities, improve neighborhood character and attractiveness, and increase property tax revenue for the city of Baltimore. Next. So just a kind of summary of the program overall. The fixed pricing program applies to properties that are listed as available for sale on the city's BuyIntoBmore site and under the fixed pricing program. So there's properties that are owned by the city of Baltimore that are not included in this program. This is specifically for properties that are listed on that site and that are listed as available under the fixed pricing program. It does apply to properties that are located within the market typologies categories E through J. So the city of Baltimore has a housing market typology. There's a map that you can access that's available on our website, and it categorizes the different markets within the city, specifically housing markets within the city. And the E through J categories are some of our more stressed neighborhoods that have higher levels of vacancy, and it is where most of our city-owned properties are currently. The people are limited to up to 12 properties per application. So any one entity can only have up to 12 properties at one time. So you can apply for additional properties as you obtain use and occupancy permits on properties that were previously purchased, but you can't exceed more than 12 properties at any given time. All vacant sales must be for redevelopment for residential or mixed use that includes residential or green space. So this program is not for commercial properties. It's only for residential properties at this point in time. And we're going to be giving priority, as I said before, to city residents for the first 90 days of the program. And this doesn't limit other options that the city has to sell properties. So we will still have processes for larger development areas where we may do requests for proposals or requests for qualifications. We also will continue to do bundle sales, and all of those will not necessarily be a part of this program. We can go on to the next slide. So this table gives you the breakdown of what the different price levels are depending on the entity purchasing the property and the type of property it is. So for vacant buildings, if you're a for-profit developer or a nonprofit that is 51 employees or more, then the price would be $3,000 per vacant building. If you're a nonprofit with 50 or less employees, then it would be $1,000 for vacant buildings. And if you're a community land trust, which you have to be a registered affordable housing land trust through the state of Maryland. And if you qualify as one of those, then the building will be $1. And if you're a homeowner or someone who wants to purchase to be a homeowner, so you want this to be your primary residence, that will be $1. And for those properties, people do have to maintain that as their primary residence for a minimum of 5 years after they receive the use and occupancy permit. And they have 12 months for all of these properties. You have 12 months to complete the renovation. We can go to the next slide. And so then there's a different pricing structure for vacant lots. So for vacant lots, if you're a for-profit or nonprofit over 50 employees, then it's $1,000 per vacant lot. For nonprofits with 50 or less employees, it's $500 per vacant lot. For community land trusts, it's $1 for a vacant lot. And for homeowners or prospective homeowners, it would be $1 for vacant lots. We can go to the next. And the lot purchases can be for either new construction of residential or mixed use residential, or to be used as green space. And then these are some additional restrictions on the sales. So, or additional kind of criteria and information. So if a property is assessed for less than the fixed price, then the property can be sold for that assessed value. For homeowner vacant building purchases, if the property is sold within the 6-year period that I spoke about previously, then the original purchaser will be required to pay a prorated portion of $3,000, which is what they would have paid as a non-homeowner. And that will be calculated based on the year that the property is sold. Valuations or appraisals will still be required for commercial sites, RFP sites, things that are not in the E through J housing market typology, so are more stable competitive neighbors that are in the A through D categories, and any site assemblage that requires over 12 properties. So those will be priced in the way that we've always priced, where we get a valuation and we negotiate the final price. And we can go to the next slide. So this slide gives you some information on the criteria for applicants. So with the fixed pricing program, you still, as an applicant, need to meet our existing requirements in the vetting process that we have in place right now, which includes a proof of financing and other reviews. So each application is evaluated on whether or not they have $90,000 available for rehab per property applied for. They cannot own vacant building inventory older than 2 years. They cannot own vacant building inventory that is less than 2 years that does not have any open or active permits. And applicant cannot have any open or pending legal cases that might result in inability to complete the project. An applicant does not have any open federal or state liens, and they can't have any open federal or state judgments. And they will be subject to our land disposition agreement. So for side yard applicants, there's some additional criteria. So it's a lot of the same criteria, but for a side yard, you do have to own the adjacent property and be the owner occupant of that property. And that property has to have a valid use and occupancy permit. So the adjacent property has to have a valid use and occupancy permit. And so for side yards, you can purchase a side yard in any of the housing market topologies. So for every other part of the fixed pricing policy, it's for the E through J categories, but for side yards, you can do that in A through J. So that's all of the areas where there's city-owned properties that are adjacent to a homeowner. That homeowner can purchase that property through the side yard pricing. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to go over a little bit of the processes and procedures. So we do have an application. It's already posted and available on our BuyIntoBmore site. And on that application, you would be answering questions related to who's buying the property, whether or not the purchaser owns any other homes, if they have outstanding liens or taxes on the other properties, how they will fund the rehab, and what is their plan, what's their intended use for the property, and what's the general plan for what they're going to do. Go to the next. And so now we can go into kind of what the schedule is for our review of those applications. So when we receive an application, we're going to be accepting applications on a rolling basis, and we are aiming to have award or rejection decisions within 2 weeks of receipt of an application. Once the property is awarded and they've successfully passed the vetting process, then they would be awarded. So if they successfully pass the vetting process, it would be awarded to that first applicant. If there's multiple applications for the same property, then all applicants must and all of the applicants successfully pass the vetting process, then they will be reviewed in the order of submission. So the first applicant received that passes the vetting process would be awarded the property. And then if someone is not able to pass the vetting process, they will be given 5 days to remedy whatever the issue is. And if they're not able to remedy the issue, then we would go to reviewing the next eligible applicant. Next slide. Okay. So once we've awarded the property, we're going to prepare the sale for the Board of Estimates approval. All of our sales do have to go through approval by Board of Estimates. But this process also streamlined that for us. So we're going to have a standing item that will be on the Board of Estimates agenda every 2 weeks. And it will be for all of our fixed pricing policy dispositions. And once we've gotten the property through that Board of Estimates approval, then we will prepare the property for settlement. And the goal is to have settlement within 45 days of approval. And the department also abates all municipally imposed liens and charges within 10 days of the award. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to Tamara Woods, and she's going to go over some of the things that you need to take into account before you go ahead and apply for a property.
All right, thank you. So again, I'm Tamara Woods, Assistant Commissioner for Land Management, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about your proposal. What is it that you want to do? Any expert assistance we recommend that you include or at least consider, and some resources. Next slide, please. So the proposal, you should give some thought to your project type and your proposed use. So as Deputy Commissioner Edwards mentioned, you can do residential, mixed use, residential, or green space. You also can consider if what you're developing is for your primary residence, or if you're a developer coming in, are you looking to do home ownership or rental products? So take those things into consideration. Also, we have several neighborhoods that are available in the housing market typology areas that apply to this fixed pricing program. So spend some time looking through the city, drive through and see what actually works for you as a developer. So location isn't the same across the city, and nor is it suitable for maybe what your needs are, either as a primary resident for a homeowner occupant, or even as a developer. In the size of the buildings that we have, and even some of the vacant lots, one of the things that you may want to take into consideration is if you're looking for something that's a 3-story versus a 2-story. We often have properties that are either of those. The vacant lots that we have too, if it's something that's suitable for a single row house and you're looking to do infill in the mid block, or there may be an opportunity, since you can purchase up to 12, to do a new construction that maybe utilizes up to 12 lots or 5 lots. So really take these things into consideration, and as you refine what your proposal is that you would like to do, we strongly recommend that you look at the zoning for that particular lot, especially for those that are looking to do mixed use. Next slide. So expert assistance. Our properties do require work, and as was mentioned, the minimum required is $90,000. But we do know that our properties will require, roughly 180,000, maybe up to even 250 for a full renovation. So what we do recommend that you do before you kind of go all in is work with the city's planning department, especially for those that are looking to do either multifamily or a mixed use. So that ties into the question or the information you should get around zoning. Often for multifamily properties or mixed use proposals, you will require extra steps. In some cases, if you have, for example, something that was a single family row house and you want to do multifamily, you may actually be required to do a city council ordinance for what's called a conversion. So we definitely advise that you have that conversation for those types of projects that are a little bit more involved, that you visit the city's planning department for what's called a pre-development meeting. The next thing, you're welcome to visit any of the sites that we have. You can request an inspection right of entry. We do have that available on our website too. So when you go to the BuyIntoBmore site, you can click in and say that you would like to do an inspection right of entry. For that particular action, you can gain entry, but we do ask that you return the boards to the way that you found them, and they have special screws. So with that, if you are looking to do it as a primary residence, or you're not really familiar or are a contractor, we advise that you do go in with someone that is either an experienced contractor so that they know what they're looking at, but also to help you ascertain, a truer cost estimate for the project. We think those things are critical, and they're obviously critical for you for the success of this project. And then working with a licensed contractor, we've already gotten some questions for many people that may be out of state. Contractors, you do have to be registered with the state of Maryland to do business with the city of Baltimore. So if you're not currently registered with the state of Maryland, there is a special process that you would have to go through. first to get registered through the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. And once you have a registration from there, you would actually go to the circuit court clerk's office to get your contractor's license, an out-of-state contractor's license. And once you have that approved, you would bring a copy of that with a photo ID and get into the to our system in the permits office. So it's a 3-step process, and more information we can provide more on that, but through our permits office, that's available. So it is something that you can do. We do know that we have a lot of interest from out-of-state developers. So wanted to make that clear that you do have to be licensed in the state of Maryland. If you are not currently licensed, there is a path for you. So next slide. So resources, how do you navigate all of this? How do you even, really begin to select and make sense of all the properties that we have available? So we have a tool called Code Map, which is really a helpful tool. It has a variety of layers on it that you can bring up what is the housing market typology. It shows you what properties are the vacant buildings versus vacant lots. It has a legend where in purple, it shows what's a homeowner. So if it's not shaded purple or some of the other colors, like brown is housing authority property, then you can ascertain that it's a rental property. So these are important things for you to kind of know as you're making decisions of, on what properties you would like to select. In addition, on Code Map, it actually, when you click on the property, it shows you what zoning category it is. So most of the properties are probably zoned R8, which is a high density residential for row house, but we may have, you might stumble upon a random commercial property or some other kind of zoning category. And so once you see that, it's worth visiting our website, and we can I'll put that in the chat later, on the zoning code, or get in contact with the zoning office. One caveat with that I did forget to mention earlier: if you find a building that you think used to be multifamily, I would urge you to confirm with the zoning department that it still has a multifamily status on it, because that may have expired. So those are the types of things that you can begin to get a picture from Code Map. The BuyIntoBmore website, that's our portal for which you would use to actually purchase these properties. And so not only do you have the fixed pricing tab, which is what we're here for, but any of the others, our bundle program, our RFPs, all of those, adopt the lots, inspection right of entry, all of those are available through this portal. It's very much like shopping. You're selecting what you want and putting it into your cart. I know several people on here have already made applications, so you're familiar with it. If you've yet to make an application, would urge you to go spend a little bit of time, on there. And then our DHCD website, it is really very good website. Our permit information is on there. You can actually go, even if you're, say, for instance, looking at a property and curious about if neighboring properties have permits, you can do a permit search. You can get information on how to apply for permits, any special things that you may need for that. Google Street View is another resource. If you're not local and are not able to drive around, physically drive around, then you can look through Google Street View and at aerial imaging and kind of get a sense of what might be there on the ground. And know the community. One of the things too that we do urge people to spend some time looking to see if there are community groups or activities and different things around. There is Live Baltimore, which maybe Rochelle, you could drop the Live Baltimore link in the chat, that actually gives little snippets of around town for Baltimore neighborhoods. So we have quite a few resources on our website. We do, in addition to this, if you go to our website for fixed pricing, you may have seen the FAQ that might answer some of the questions that you have. And one of the things I would also urge is to visit our website constantly. We're always updating with new information based on the feedback that we get. So with that, I'm going to say next slide and turn it back over to Deputy Commissioner Edwards. Oh, I'm to this slide too. Okay. So after the award, what do you do? So you're going to review and sign your contract. So we walked a little bit through the process. So when you're actually going through, you've applied for the property, you've been vetted, you've done all of these different things, and you're good to go. What happens is you are going to be required to sign your contract, which is the land disposition agreement. And that is your agreement that says the length of time, the 12 months. It also outlines, if you're the primary resident, what that prorated amount is if that you would owe if for some reason you sold before the 5-year commitment after the 12 months was done. So all of those things live in the LDA, including how much time before you have to apply for your first permit. What are these benchmarks? What are these different things? All of that is in this, contract that you would have to sign. If you are using outside funders, including grants, work with that program to ensure that the funds will be available for closing. This could be, if you have as a developer any other outside fund sources that are coming in. If you're coming as a primary resident for a homeowner occupant, often you can get closing cost grants and all of these other things. But those funds have to be ready and available prior to closing, or at minimum at closing. So choosing your title company, you have the option to choose whatever title company you want to use, or you can select from one of the city's approved title companies. If you get to that point, you would be working with a real estate officer in our department who could direct you to one of our city approved title companies, and they would actually make contact and make sure you have all of that ready prior to settlement. And working with your title company to understand your estimated closing costs. In this case, it is very much just like a regular real estate transaction that you would make outside of the city. So you will want to make sure that you understand the deal and the costs associated with the deal that you are making. So once it's yours, so you've gone through step A and now you're at step Z. What happens, and you're ready to go. So you have the 12 months to complete the job. That's in your land disposition agreement. And then you're going to meet with the Baltimore City Permits Office to determine if you need to register that property. That's super critical step that you need to do, because remember, these are all vacant properties. They have what's called a vacant building notice on it, or it's a vacant lot. So you have to register that property. Then your property will be monitored for LDA compliance until you've actually completed and gotten your use and occupancy. So I mentioned before in the LDA that you have a certain amount of time, typically 90 days, before you have to, pull that first permit. So we're watching the permit system. We're making sure that you are pulling those permits. If we don't see that there's movement or action, then we will reach out to you to make sure that you're actually on track for completing this project as you agreed upon in your contract. With our LDAs, there is the ability to extend them. It is not automatic. So if for some reason, say you're making substantial, progress and, you're teetering on that 12 months and you need to go to 13 or 15, and we're seeing that that activity is going, that permit activity is going, then we can, extend that and give you beyond the 12 months to complete the project. But it is on a case-by-case basis, and we do have to see that there is substantial work and constant work being done. So that's kind of the general overview. And we know that each of these things, could be probably a webinar in themselves. So definitely feel free to put in any other questions, and we'll get back to you on these pieces as well. So now I'll turn it back over.
Great. I just wanted to add 2 points on this slide before we go to the next slide. Just want to make sure people understand when we talk about closing costs, you will be responsible for closing costs beyond you're the prices we shared earlier, the $1, $3,000 and $1,000. That's what you pay to the city for the property, but you'll still be responsible for your closing costs as you would for any other property that you purchase. And that is the cost that you would get from the title company, and they'll help you with that and understand what the closing costs are. And then the other item I wanted to point out, I think I've forgotten, but if I remember it, I'll share it after. We can go to the next slide. Oh, and the other point, I remembered it. Okay, so the other point was that when we talk about you have to have all your financing and funding in place, that's for your entire project. So that's not just the $1,000 that you need to pay for the property or the $3,000 for the property. When you go to closing, you're supposed to have financing for what you're going to be able to just get started right away on the project and the rehab. So you need to have that financing in place for the rehab itself. Okay, so now we want to move on and just talk a little bit about the Charm City Roots program. So this is a program that we're really excited about, to have people have this opportunity to identify properties that they are interested in, vacant properties that have been either they live nearby, or maybe a former family owned this property in the past and they have some kind of connection to the property and really would like to bring the property back to productive use and to use it as their own primary residence, partly because of this kind of legacy connection that they have to the property. So we have this portal up and available already. It's on the BuyIntoBmore site. You can select the Charm City Roots. So when you get into the welcome page, you'll either pick fixed pricing program as the program where you want to purchase a property, or if you're looking at identifying a property that is not yet city owned, that's where you go into the Charm City Roots portal. And again, this is vacant properties that are not city owned, are properties that would be eligible for this portal. And so you can search through the eligible properties, and then you can add that property to your cart as you would for any of the other things on the BuyIntoBmore site. And you select that you're doing it through Charm City Roots, and then you'll fill out the application, and you're going to give details about what your connection is to the property, why this is a property that you've identified as one that you're interested in and that you have this legacy connection to. You'll give us the address of the property and the other information that we ask for, and how you would be, whether or not you'd be able to actually be in a position to purchase the property once we acquired it. And then we will begin reviewing these and determining whether or not the properties are eligible. First will be kind of a preliminary review just to see if they're not already in some other kind of state that would make them not eligible for our acquisition. And then we'll look forward and see whether or not acquisition is feasible. We have a couple different methods for acquiring properties. We have our new in rem, well, it's not that new anymore, but we have in rem foreclosure, where we are able to foreclose on properties that have high liens. So if they have liens that exceed the value of the property, then the city is able to acquire those properties through the in rem process. And that's one of the fastest ways that we can acquire properties. However, if a property is not eligible for in rem acquisition because the liens are not that high yet, then we would have to review whether or not it would be feasible for us to acquire the property through other means, such as condemnation or negotiated purchase. So we'll make that determination, and then we will be notifying any applicants of the outcome of the review after we've completed the review. And then also, if we do determine that it's a property that is feasible for acquisition, then we would be referring the interested party to our home ownership office to work with them to figure out whether or not they are yet in a financial position to take on the property, or if they need some home buyer education or financial counseling. So basically just trying to help people to get into the position so that once we have completed the acquisition of the property, they're ready to go ahead and purchase the property from the city and move towards turning it into their primary residence. So that is the Charm City Roots program. It's going to be ongoing. We have the portal open, and we will continue accepting those applications going forward. So that is that. And then this is just to let you know kind of some of our other outreach efforts. We have done this webinar today. We're going to have a questions and answer period after this. We're going to do another webinar on April 24th at 6 p.m. We have eBlast where we send out information. So if you're interested in getting information from DHCD about fixed pricing, about our other programs, when we have other properties that might go through an RFP process, all of that information, you can sign up for eBlast and get information from DHCD. So please go to our website and sign up for eBlast. And then also follow us on social media. We are on all of the different social media platforms and would love to have you follow us so that you can keep up to date on all of the different information that we have to share and all the great programs that we have. We're also put this on the left side of the screen. You can see a door knob. I forget what these are called, but anyways, a flyer that we'll be putting on different doorknobs throughout the city so that people can get additional information. We're also going to have flyers available to be passed out at different community events and community meetings. So we're really trying to get the word out as much as possible on this kind of door knocker thing. There's a QR code, so you can go to that QR code and get more information on the program and all of the things that we kind of went over today. So that's some of the different outreach efforts that we have. I think that may be the final slide, but Rochelle, is there any more slides? Yep. So now we're at the questions portion. So I know that I've seen a lot of questions coming in the chat and being answered as they come in, but we can start, answering any that were not able to be typed in. So I don't know if Rochelle, if it would be good for you to kind of go through the chat and just pick up on any questions that haven't yet been answered and read those out. And then also we have some hands, so we could start with the raised hands, I suppose. And maybe you can continue kind of answering the ones in the chat.
I don't know if
can we unmute? I mean, can we?
I don't know if we can unmute the people.
Okay.
Yes, we can unmute anybody that needs to ask a question.
Okay.
And we'll
Tammy,
go
would
in
you be
order
able
of
to
the
do
raise.
the unmuting while I keep answering questions in the chat, please?
Pardon me.
I think she was asking if you would be able to kind of call on people and unmute them while she's answering questions in the chat.
Yes, Brian do that.
Brian can do that. Okay.
Hello, we're gonna start first with Monica Cooper. She was the first hand that I saw up.
Okay.
Monica, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I shot my hand up there really quick with all these people in this chat. But I had identified a fixed price property immediately as soon as the announcement was made, and I was told several different things. I was told that that they won't sell it to me because they're going to try to sell it as a bundle, that they're trying to fix up the entire block. And I said, well, give me an opportunity and we will, because a few of those properties are were actually vacant to that. I think they were like empty lots, but I had identified that property, and next to that is about 4 or 5 different properties next to that. And I've been trying 8 ways to Sunday to communicate with the individual. And I was like, well, maybe she's unsure about how this process is going to work. But so that I understand, will property be withheld, even though I'm supposed to have that first right to be able to purchase this fixed rate property? I've identified it. I've already paid.
So there are a couple of different things. Something that we have on our website is that we do make clear that we are adding and removing properties based on our strategy work. In the beginning, and I think overall what the person may have been trying to impart to you is that we do have some that we will sell as a bundle, or we may be doing other strategies related to it. So if that was the case, and I won't go into specifically what your property was, if you wanted to maybe message me or Rochelle privately what that address was or what that application, then we can get back to you. But there are multiple different ways that the properties are actually going to be sold. Some may be withheld or removed if we find that they are part of a whole block strategy and need to be sold as a bundle. Again, I'm not sure what your particular property is, but we can look and see what that is for you and get back to you directly.
Yeah, so please do share that address so that we can look into it further and give you more information about the particular property.
Okay, we're gonna move next to Kamar Hassan. And if you could unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks for taking the call. I just question I have is that in reference to the water bills, who is responsible? Am I responsible to pay the water bills outstanding?
Not
the-
the water bills that accumulate prior to closing. Prior to closing, we will abate all of those water, any outstanding liens, any municipal liens at all will be abated. But then post-closing, you will be responsible once you actually own the property.
Okay. And for the inspection, you just fill out the form, and do we pay a amount like $26 or something to get an entry to the buildings? Is there any cost to go into the building?
For the inspection right of entry, how much is it? Rochelle, do you know off the top of your head?
$25 plus the $25 plus the service charge, so it ends up being like $26 and change.
And
Okay.
there, what's the limit on how many?
You can request to view up to 3 properties, and it'll be over the course of 3 consecutive days.
Okay, so you guys assign time, or do we pick the time?
We would coordinate
You
with
would
you
pick
on
the
the time.
days.
You,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Next. Ryan?
All right, next hand I see up is Shauna Freder. I'm gonna unmute you now.
Fredericks.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. I've been checking the site since April 2nd, and there are almost no homes available. A lot of the homes that were there prior to are just gone now. So I know that you guys said, 2-week timeline. Is that a feasible timeline? Like I check almost every single day, and there's just nothing available to actually even submit an application and get started on this process.
Yeah, so we initially did get quite a few applications, and a lot of those were not people who fit within that phase 1, which is Baltimore residents who want to purchase for their primary residence. So we've been working on reviewing those that have come in and releasing them back out for application. We do have some where we're releasing them, and then as soon as we get them back out, somebody else is putting in an application. But we are working to get more of the inventory back up on the site. So unfortunately, yeah, it is pretty low right now, but those will be coming back available as we get through the backlog.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we're going to Ayana.
Hi there. Yes, hi there. Last time I checked, the property of interest for me was available. I did speak with a housing representative for that area, and he did tell me about the right of entry. But I cannot figure out where the application is. Like, where is it? How is there a link or something?
No,
Everybody
so when
keeps
you
telling me it's on the website, but I don't see it.
when you go to the BuyIntoBmore site and you select a property, you have to add it to your cart. And then on the lower left side, you're going to see the cart, and it's going to show the number of properties that you added to it. When you click on that, you're going to see all of the programs that the property is eligible for. So if it is able to be applied for through the fixed pricing program, you would then click fixed pricing program and then the apply button, and the application will show up at the bottom.
Thank you so very, very much. I really appreciate it.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. And also for other people who may be having issues navigating the site, there is a tutorial on our website, on the DHCD website, that I'll post into the chat, We'll also be preparing another tutorial specifically for getting a fixed pricing property into a cart, just in case the general tutorial isn't helpful, but that will at least help you get acclimated to moving around the site and adding properties to the cart and filling out the application. And I'll drop the link to that video or to the link to the site that has the video in the chat shortly.
And so just Rochelle, to clarify that, so as they're applying, if they want the inspection right of entry, that would be, you would put that in the cart at the same time that
Yep,
you're
so
putting in the application?
if an inspection right of entry is available for it, and there we do have some instances where for some reason it's not showing. But in an ideal world, you'll put the property in your cart and then it'll show as eligible for both fixed pricing and an inspection right of entry. And you can put in an application for both. If you
Okay.
see a property go into the cart that has fixed pricing but doesn't have inspection right of entry, please reach out to our office at, I posted in the chat a couple times, but, and we'll let you know what Danielle or one of our other staff can help navigate to getting you an inspection right of entry for that property.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna go to Patrick next. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much. I just want to get a clarification because I'm kind of been getting some mixed messages. We are a church in Baltimore, and right now we are interested in getting a lot to build a church. I just wanted to know if we can qualify in this program that we can obtain a lot, then we will develop for a church building. But also we're thinking about like a youth community center in the same lot. If we can get something a little bit bigger. But my question is, does that qualify? Thank you.
Right. So currently the fixed pricing program is just for projects that are going to include residential. So you would have to be either building for residential or having a mixed use that included residential. So if it's just a church use or just a community center, that wouldn't go in through the fixed pricing program. But we still have properties that you could still put in a bid for a property and work with our office to find properties that would work for you. It just wouldn't be through the fixed pricing program.
You may want to go to the open bid tab on BuyIntoBmore, as those are open to the full variety of uses.
Yep.
All right, Patrick, it seems like you're done with your question, so I'm just gonna move on to Jonathan Williams.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Thanks for taking my question. This is in regards to the pricing for the individual house. Now, I understand it's a dollar program, but my wife and I were she's the head of a community association, and what she'd like to do is do the same thing that she's done with our neighborhood with a new neighborhood by buying multiple properties, and then of course within a certain radius. And then, of course, starting like a neighborhood association in order to get grants to beautify the area. My question is this: I kind of missed that part because I was a little busy. You said there was like a $1, then there was like a 1,000 to 3,000 part.
Yeah.
For the plan that we're trying to do, would that fall in the $1,000 category, the $3,000 category, or can we get each of those properties for the $1?
No, so you'd be limited to the $1 is only if you're planning to live in the property as your own primary residence. So that's only one property per, applicant that can do that.
Right.
For properties that you want to purchase to redevelop, as you're describing, if you're a nonprofit and you have 50 or less employees, then the price point would be $1,000 per property. If you're a for-profit developer, then it would be $3,000 per property. If you're a community land trust, there is that price point. So that is for organizations that are registered affordable housing land trust under the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation. So you have to actually be registered as an affordable housing and land trust, which means that you're providing housing to people at certain area median income levels. So this is affordable housing. And for that type of project, then it would be the $1 price point. And then for any of these, there's a limit of 12 properties at any
Right.
one time.
Now, would it be possible to do a combination of, like, let's say we do, because we do intend to stay to live in one of the properties, but to get additional properties, kind of essentially make a neighborhood bubble, if that makes any sense. Would it be possible to do that, or would it just have to fall under one category?
I think that, so you can do that. You would pay the dollar would only apply, the dollar price point would only apply for the property that you're planning to live in. And then the rest of the properties would be at the appropriate price point, depending on if you're for-profit or nonprofit. I'm not sure about the application itself. Maybe Rochelle can answer that and see if somebody can split the application in that way, or would they have to put in 2 separate applications?
2 separate applications, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's
So
fine.
you would apply separately for those 2 types.
Thank you very much.
Next we have Monica Davenport.
One other thing I want people to understand, because I don't know that we said this before, and we've gotten quite a few applications of people who are saying they want to live in a property, but then they're going to have multiple units in the property. When we're saying for your primary residence, it is for single family housing. So that's not a property that you're going to have multiple units in and then rent out a portion and live in it. It is for you to live in as your primary residence. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay, so it was a Monica.
Yeah.
Hi, yes, thank
Hi.
you. I have 2 questions. Well, I'm pretty sure it'll be 2 separate applications, but I still have 2 questions. My first question would be for the Charm City routes, because it may, you know, and you guys may have to acquire, are you able to apply for more than one or submit more than one house for you all to attempt to acquire for this person? Or is you can?
I think that I could see that we may need to evaluate more than one property, but I think ultimately you would only be able to, because it's intended to be for your primary residence. So that would only ultimately be able to purchase one of the properties. So, Rochelle, you could help us with the application itself. Does it allow people to put in more than one address?
It does not.
It does not. So you would only be identifying one property.
Would you be able to submit more than one application for Charm City route?
Currently, it does allow you to submit multiple applications with one property on each.
Okay. And then my second question is, are you able to, because depending on how it goes, or looking for structures, just because fixed income is, or the fixed housing income program doesn't have that many vacants or have availability right now, are you able to put in one application for maybe a fixed price program and then a Charm City routes, and kind of, you know, whichever one, you know, pans out a little bit first, you're able to get? Or
yeah, you can do that. But as we were saying about the Charm City routes, that's more of a long-term project because that's one that we don't own yet. So you can put in a fixed pricing application now, and then you put something into the Charm City routes portal. But just know that the Charm City routes one is not something that is going to be available. You know, it could be a couple of years down the line even.
All right, so we're next we're going to Linkinda Camper. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Okay, so I have a question related to nonprofits, specifically when we have multiple adopt-a-lot lots, right? So I've been looking on the site. I've seen a couple of the lots that I have already under adopt-a-lot. They were there before, now they disappeared. I'm particularly concerned about having other people coming in trying to, I guess, acquire or take lots that have already been under the care of nonprofits, as well as some houses that are already under LDA. Is there anything being done in this system where you guys are protecting the nonprofits, or at least letting us have the first right of refusal to actually buy the lots when we've been caring for them for multiple years?
So yes, part of our evaluation, I'll say first for the properties that are available, is making sure they're not already in a project. If for some reason there was one inadvertently put up that is part of a project, then we are definitely taking it down. And we are looking to protect where there's an adopt a lot for an existing community garden that's beloved, or something like that. So we do not have any intention of selling those properties if it's something that we do know about and are a partner, with the community on.
Okay, great. Hey, Tamara.
Hi, how are you? Hello, Kendra.
Hey. Okay, because I was a little worried, but what I'll do is I'll just reach out. I did have a great conversation with Harry. With Mr. Tubman, yesterday. I do know that there are some things that are underway, like the GIS system and all of these things, but I run a nonprofit. I have several people in this area. I just wanted to make sure that what I was seeing was probably a mistake and that we were protected. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely. And I'll say for others, I know we have a lot of people on the call. And so if others are in similar situations that of, a beloved community garden or an active community garden that needs to be protected, just let us know, and we can have that conversation with you and evaluate that as well.
All right. So next question.
We're going to Rodney Malloy.
Hello, how's it going there?
Hi, how are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. So I just had a couple of questions. I'll be hasty.
Mhm.
First off, you mentioned mixed use residential. So I'm assuming that falls under the R8 or R7.
Yeah, you'll have to review what the zoning is for your property, and then whatever mixed use would be allowed under that particular zoning category would be what you could do on that property. It just has to include residential for it to be within the fixed pricing program.
Understood, understood. Okay, and then where would if you guys know, where would I find or be able to access the city census or like demographic data?
Demographic data. So on CodeMap, you can get some, they have these links to neighborhood profiles where you can get some demographic data. I'm trying to think of other resources for demographic data. I think the Department of Planning probably has other resources on their website. I know they have a lot of different maps and resources and data that could help you with that demographic information. I think those
And there's also
neighborhood
some of the
profiles are
information
pretty
on
good.
the BuyIntoBmore site as well. Like
What did you say?
I said there's also some demographic-ish data on the BuyIntoBmore site, like whether things are under permit, whether things are owner occupied in the area. That way you can look at the property in context. You have to play with some of the layers.
Okay.
Yeah, and like owner occupancy, vacancy, all of that is also available on CodeMap. There's a lot of different layers on CodeMap. So there's several different areas where you can get some
So
of that
yeah, I'll
information.
just browse the site first
Mm-hmm.
and see about that. And last question was I know for the vacant lots, right? So some of those lots I did look into, and they're not all conforming. So what's the variance process with that, or would I have to talk to the zoning department, I'm guessing? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
understood, understood. All right, well, that's pretty much everything. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Oh, and just really quickly, I dropped in the link for the planning department maps and data page where they also have some resources, for you.
Okay, roger that. Thank you.
We're gonna go next to Jamae.
Yes, sir. Hello?
Never.
Yeah, so I'm currently on the BuyIntoBaltimore website, and I currently see that there's 6 structures available or 6 properties available. So my question is purely related to inventory. I come across properties where there's taxes that are oftentimes they're owed a lot more than the assessed value. I know that you guys brought up the in-rem process. Is there a way that I can like, if I have it under site control, can I bring it specifically to like a person or a department to sort of expedite that process?
What do you mean by if you have it under site control?
Under contract.
So you have it under contract, so you're purchasing the property, but you're saying that the liens are too high?
Correct.
We do have what we call the lien release program. Now, in order to qualify for the lien release program, the seller would have to be willing to sell the property for either the
For no consideration.
for no consideration. So they're not going to get any money. You would still have to pay either the fair market value or the flat water and taxes.
The assessed value in taxes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, assessed value or the flat water and taxes. And that money would come to the city. So the seller wouldn't actually get any of the money if the liens are higher than the value of the property. So that is a program that we manage in our office. So if you're interested in that, then we can work with you separately. Rochelle, can you put a contact person for the lien release in the chat?
Thank you.
Hey everyone, we're at 2:11. We're about 11 minutes over. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. I did drop a link to the form where you can submit questions that we're unable to get to. I want to take the time to thank everyone for participating. Thank you for your questions, your engagement and interest in the meeting. And as we continue to progress through the different phases, information will be on the website and shared across our social media. Kate mentioned earlier that we do send out email blasts. So when you go to the DAC website, you will be prompted to sign up for our emails. Sign up for that and you'll be able to keep up to date with all the great things happening, not just the fixed pricing program. So again, just want to thank everyone for their time and their participation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And please do submit any questions that we weren't able to get to. And then we also have the second webinar that will be next week on the 24th at 6 p.m. So thanks again for joining us and taking the time out of your day to learn more about this program. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.